Well, welcome to another edition of Christian Answers. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and I'll be walking you through an article that I ran across this week. It's about comedian Andy Richter, who is eternally grateful, the article says, his wife aborted his child. And this is one of the most strangest, the most oddest articles I've ever read, because it talks about a strange attitude that this comedian has toward abortion. I mean, usually when you run into people who are for abortion, they're for the woman's right to have an abortion, they usually don't celebrate it, although we are seeing more and more celebration of the culture of death these days. But here is an example of someone who is giving a speech, and he is excited and actually very enthused about the fact that his wife had an abortion. And we're going to go through this article that talks about this, a very odd kind of a thing, but this is comedian Andy Richter. He is representing the secular pagan world that we live in, the anti-Christian, anti-biblical worldview. And we shouldn't be surprised that these people surface once in a while in events and speak their true mind on the subject, because this is what the mind of the pagan is. Moral relativism, anti-Christian, anti-biblical, anti-theistic rhetoric here that we see coming from Andy Richter. So let's get into this article, and it's not a very inspiring article, but it does show you the depths of depravity that we are now experiencing in our own country, the United States. Andy Richter is eternally grateful his wife aborted his child. Andy Richter might be a comedian with a career built around humor and making other people laugh on shows with Conan O'Brian, but abortion is no laughing matter. This is an article written by Holly Shear in the Federalist online newspaper. And I ran across this. It was in the news feed in Yahoo startup page. And I clicked on it, and I found it was just fascinating that here is what the pagan secular world is thinking about abortion, even if it doesn't say this very often outright like Andy Richter did at this event. Eternal gratefulness for an abortion shouldn't be something to brag about, the article says, but that's what Andy Richter just did at a Planned Parenthood fundraiser. The actor who hosted the Sexy Beast fundraiser for Los Angeles branch of Planned Parenthood credits his girlfriend's abortion back in 1992 with allowing them to live the lives they wanted. So he comes right out and says that this abortion in 1992 helped him and his girlfriend live the kind of life they wanted. So they were willing to basically commit child sacrifice on the altar of lifestyle convenience. They were willing to go to the altar, put their child on the altar, and plunge a knife into it in order to preserve their lifestyle back in 1992. I don't know what this, the name of the fundraiser was called the Sexy Beast. I don't know what that means. I know what the Bible talks about, the beast and the Antichrist, and I don't know what Planned Parenthood is using it in context of a fundraiser, but again, whatever they mean by it wouldn't surprise me with this organization. This is the nation's largest abortion provider. Hundreds of thousands, millions and millions of abortions have come about because of Planned Parenthood activities. So this is a bad, bad organization. It's an evil organization. And here's an example where a comedian gets up at a fundraiser and says he is eternally grateful his wife aborted his child. Eternally grateful? That's religious language. That is spiritual language, and he's using it in a dark, satanic way, almost a reverse Christian way, almost like the Church of Satan. They invert things. They invert the so-called Catholic Mass. They invert the cross. And here he's talking in terms of eternally grateful, the way you would in a church. He's talking about abortion gave him an eternally grateful attitude. Very, very evil, very satanic talk here. The article goes on. These lives included eventually marrying each other, children, when they decided they wanted to be parents, pets, and careers. What those lives don't include is the realization that they will forever be missing a child, and because they killed their baby. Richter and his future wife, Sarah Thayer, lacked steady employment, and were focused on building careers. When they found she was pregnant, Richter explained what happened next. Luckily for us, Planned Parenthood existed. My girlfriend knew that she was not ready for motherhood. That's strange. She's ready to have sex, but she's not ready for motherhood. I thought those two went hand in hand. I thought that was the assumption that if you're ready to have sex, you're ready to have motherhood. But here in the modern pagan world, that doesn't seem to make sense to them. I go on. And I knew that I was in no way prepared to be a father. Again, you were prepared to have sex, but you're not prepared to be a father? If you are going to have sex, then you are basically saying you are ready to be a father. And if you're not ready to be a father, you shouldn't be having sex. That's simple. That's simple logic. I drove from Chicago in my battered old Toyota pickup to be with her when she went to Planned Parenthood to terminate her pregnancy. So he's trying to show that he was supportive. And normally in a situation where the woman is having to go through some kind of a medical procedure or some kind of illness and she goes to the hospital or the doctor, being with her or supporting her would be a good thing. But in this case, being with her and helping her is assisting murder, accessory to murder. He was with her and stood with her and supported her as she killed her baby, killed their baby. It was his child also. And he says that he was there to be with her as she went to Planned Parenthood to terminate her pregnancy. Her pregnancy. Again, he doesn't want to own up to the fact that it's his child. He put it more in terms of her pregnancy, not even saying her baby. Her choice to get an abortion was a choice that she made with assuredness. She knew that she was doing the right thing for everyone involved. The right thing? By what standard of right was she doing the, quote, right thing? I mean, do you just say anything, or do you just use that word right thing whenever you feel like it? What is the standard of right thing? Again, we have to raise that question because that statement makes no sense outside of a moral context. She knew she was doing the right thing for everyone involved. That is the most nonsensical statement. First of all, what does the right thing mean without any kind of moral basis? And then secondly, for the right thing for everyone involved? What about the baby? But I can't say it was easy. She was sad, and I was sad, and it was sad. But to this day, I know that she will tell you that she made the right decision. Sure, she'll tell you she made the right decision, and she'll say it over and over and over and over again to try to convince you and her and everyone else that she did the right thing, even though she knows deep down in her heart, because she's made in the image of God just like everyone else, God has put within the heart of every man and woman a conscience and the remnants of the image of God that everyone has. And that moral sense cries out against this act of violence that they did against their child. And sure, her words will say, I did the right thing. And Andy Richter will say, she did the right thing, and try to reinforce that. But everybody knows she did the wrong thing because she killed her baby and his baby. She murdered their unborn child. And her repeating the claim that she did the right thing is only a rationalization. It's a psychological tool to try to feel better about the crime that she committed. And I think Andy Richter, too, uses humor, and he uses his bravado here, his eternal gratefulness for this abortion, that kind of language. He uses that as a cover also to cover up what he knows is an evil, bad, wrong thing in taking his girlfriend to the abortion clinic to have their baby killed. Well, let me go on here. How do the kids feel about this? This is the Federalist writer, Holly Shear, writing now, and she's raising the question, how do the kids feel about this? There is no possible way to explain this as the right decision for at least one person in this scenario, the older sibling of the Richters' other children. Since they're so open about this to strangers and made this a public issue, I'd imagine they'd already discussed abortion with their living children. One wonders whether they explain that if they had made different choices and had different priorities, there would be another child in their family. As their living children grow and become adult themselves, maybe this choice will make sense to them. Maybe it won't. It's possible they're distressed to know that they had the timing of their conception. Had the timing of their conception been different, they could have been the one aborted, because that is a terrible thought. So her point is that these children, the living children of Andy Richter and his wife now, they have to wonder in the back of their minds, they could have just as easily have been aborted if the timing had not been right for their birth, or that Andy and his wife, or back then the girlfriend, might have thought differently. Andy might have killed them. So, yeah, that's a very disconcerting thought. When a family loses a member, that family is forever changed. No matter how that loss comes about, it is a loss. The lessons that we learn and the growth that can come from pain and grief might be something to be grateful for. But the opportunity to actively cause that loss should not be. That should be difficult. It should be wrenching, and it should not even need to be an option or an easy decision. Many choices in life are not eternal, but abortion is. Once the baby is gone, it's gone, and the future children don't replace the life that was lost. Children are not interchangeable. They're unique, each one with limitless possibilities and promise. And snuffing out one because of convenience and the whims of parents ends those possibilities. That's exactly right. Andy and his girlfriend aborted their first child out of convenience and personal lifestyle choices. They wanted that baby out of the way. They did not want to deal with a child at that point in their life, and so they made this decision that they claim was the best for everyone, which is totally irrational. How can that be the best for that baby? How can the death of that baby be the best for that baby? There is no way that you can somehow rationalize that killing that baby was best for that baby. But then they go on and they say, it was best for everyone. Everyone living at the time in the world, there must be trying to say, but what about the baby in the womb? What about the baby who had not been born yet? What about the baby who was living? I should correct myself there. That baby was living, and it was killed deliberately for the benefit of Andy and his wife, so that they could maybe make a little more money or advance their career or other selfish reasons. And that's what it is, selfish reasons. And so we need to call that for what it is. It's a selfish reason that they killed their baby, as it always is a selfish reason. Richter hints it's uneasy. He's uneasy with his choice. Richter doesn't find it difficult to support Planned Parenthood after his personal history with abortion. However, he wasn't shy about his feelings about pro-life people. It's easy. Planned Parenthood helps a ton of people. And if they don't agree with that, F them. You can quote me on that. Tell them I said F them. And he used the F word. So he is shaking his fist right in the face of Christians, and he's shaking his face in the face of the God of the Bible and saying, I don't care what you say, I don't care what your values are, I don't care what the moral standards are of Christianity. This is a good thing. They help a lot of people. Help a lot of people. Well, they also ruin a lot of people's lives, because the millions of babies who are murdered doesn't help them much, does it? I guess it all depends on who you count in helping. Planned Parenthood helps a lot of people advance their selfish lifestyles. That's what it does. But it doesn't help the innocent unborn children at all. It kills them. It destroys them. It ruins their life. And we need to call that out and say it plainly. This logic and this reasoning makes no sense. Andy Richter's logic makes no sense. Now I move on. People who are at peace and confident in their decisions don't need to attack others. They can tolerate disagreement without rage. Pro-life people don't seek to leave families without help and support. They desire the opposite, for all members of a family to be present and able to help. We want for all babies to have the chance to pursue their dreams, not just those lucky enough to be wanted. So the selfish Richters murdered their child, and they wanted to get on with their careers and lifestyle. They wanted to have a better financial base. Whatever they thought was important, they put above the life of their unborn child. Richter might be a comedian with a career built around humor and making other people laugh on shows with Conan O'Brian, but abortion is no laughing matter. That sadness he and his wife felt was for a good reason. They were looking at temporary circumstances and making permanent decisions. That baby wouldn't have ruined their future. But abortion ruined the chance for that child to ever have an opportunity at life. That's something nobody can be eternally grateful for. So the article, Holly Shearer did a good job in pointing out just something so ridiculous. And, Andy Richter, might be a funny guy. He might be somebody with a lot of talent to come up with a joke at the right moment. But his value system, Andy Richter's value system, is just awful. I mean, it is from the satanic places. And anyone who can say that he's eternally grateful his wife had an abortion is obviously operated from a deficient moral basis. He's trying to say something that really is inappropriate in this context. Eternally grateful that you murdered your child. I think that this writer rightfully brought out the point that Andy Richter's value system is part of the culture of death. This is the culture of death that we live in today. We live in a world where people are more and more very bold in their proclamation of their rights. And if anything gets in their way, they're going to run over that in order to exercise their rights. Now, it's interesting that when you look at what he and his wife were saying, Luckily for us, Planned Parenthood existed. My girlfriend knew that she was not ready for motherhood. And I said before that if a woman is ready for sex, she's ready for motherhood. That was the assumption for decades and centuries and millennia. If a person was childbearing age and she had sexual urges, she would get married, and then that is assumed that she's ready for motherhood. If you can bear a child and you are willing to engage in sexual activity, you are, by doing so, saying that you are ready and prepared for motherhood. Now, who can be totally prepared and ready for motherhood? I don't know if you had asked any woman before she gave birth, were you ready for motherhood? If she's never given birth before and she's never raised a child, if you ask her, are you ready for motherhood? Are you prepared? Probably 100% of all women would say, well, I don't know if I'm ready and I don't know if I'm prepared, but I'm willing to go ahead and raise this child. And so if you ask any woman who is pregnant, are you totally ready for this? Are you ready, totally prepared for this? She would say no. So you can't, again, ask yourself, do I think I'm ready for parenthood? And then if you say no, then abort your child. Because, again, that's a natural, normal emotion in women to not feel prepared, not feel ready for motherhood. But I am sure that Andy Richter's girlfriend and Andy himself, if they could have simply gone ahead and had that child, they would have found a way to raise that child and provide for that child. They would have found the way, because if there's a will, there's a way. And if they had really wanted to preserve and protect that child, they would have. And they would have made adjustments to their lifestyle. They would have made adjustments to their career. They would have made ends meet financially, and they could have done it. And everybody in the past who had those same fears before their first child, they found a way to do it. So this is an excuse. When his girlfriend said she knew she was not ready for motherhood. Yes, she was ready for motherhood, and she could have raised that child. And that is no excuse. And then Andy says, and I knew that I was in no way prepared to be a father. Again, the same logic, the same argument. If you ask fathers before the birth of their first child, are you really ready for this child? Are you really prepared to be a father? They will all express misgivings and doubts and questions, because how can you say you're totally ready if you've never gone through something like that before? If you've never raised a child, how can you say that you're ready to raise a child? I mean, it's natural to have those doubts, and Andy would have found a way to provide, and he would have found a way to do the other things he wanted to do. Maybe not all in the same way that they actually turned out. His career might not have unfolded the same way, but if he had talent as a comedian and he had the energy and he was willing to work hard, he would have found a way to do what he did. And so that is not a good excuse. That is not a valid reason for aborting your child, simply to say, I knew that I was in no way prepared to be a father. How can you know that you're not ready to be a father? That's your subjective feeling about the situation. The fact is, you could have been a father, and you could have raised that child, and you could have done all the other things you wanted to do. Maybe not in the same way, but you could have. So that cannot be used as an excuse. And he should have, if he were a real man, he should have said to his girlfriend, no, we will make this happen. I will help you, and we together will raise this child, because this child is a unique individual. This child is a gift from God. we will marry and we will raise this child and we will do the right thing. That is the right thing, to choose life, to choose to do to preserve life and not kill life. That's why it's so disturbing when you hear these words. Her choice to get an abortion was a choice that she made with assuredness. She knew that she was doing the right thing for everyone involved. That is a very disturbing statement, because if they really believe that, if Andy and his wife, even today, really believe that she was doing the right thing, and that's their value system, then they have a warped and twisted satanic value system. What she's saying is, I knew killing my baby was the right thing. I know murdering my baby in the womb was the right thing. How can that be? That statement makes no sense. So, and especially for everyone involved, obviously not for everyone involved, and obviously not for that child. So it's a very disturbing realization that more and more people in our culture are actually embracing this culture of death, and they're willing to kill. They're willing to do violence against other people. They're willing to sacrifice human life in order to advance their career or to preserve their lifestyle or whatever. And that is probably what is most disturbing to me, how these people with a straight face can talk in terms of doing the right thing when it's totally the wrong thing. That means their value system is almost 180 degrees off. It's like the prophets of the Old Testament, where it says there will come a day when good is called evil and evil is called good. And this is the day we live in. We live in that day when evil is called good, when they can go to the abortion clinic and kill their baby and say they did a good thing. And the woman can go to the abortion doctor and have her baby ripped to pieces and say that was the right choice to do. That is very disturbing, and yet that's where we're at, people, today. And we need to pray for our culture. We need to pray for revival, because if we don't get a revival, there will be judgment to come. God will not tolerate this kind of behavior and this attitude for long. He will bring his judgment swiftly. So we need to pray for our country and pray for people that they come to know the God of the Bible and God's will. And that is the only hope we have today, because this kind of an article is very disturbing, and this kind of statements coming from Andy Richter is just almost the worst thing I've heard in a long time. So we'll talk to you again another episode next week, and we'll see you back then next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.